Some people want to go.
Okay, so we're here with a very special guest who came all the way from Italy and is currently on a tour of colleges all around the United States. And before we were discussing how are we going to introduce this esteemed guest because she goes by two names, Karima Dueji as your stage persona, I guess we could say. And then we have Ana Maria Guenier, who is also author of Il Corpo Nero. Could you talk about these two sides of yourself, of your identity, and when do you feel Karima Tueji? When do you feel like you're Ana Maria?
My family, all of them call me Ana Maria. Ana Maria is my name of birth, basically. And my parents decided to give me this name because Ana Maria was the name of the first Italian lady that they met in the 70s. Ana Maria was one of my parents' friends who really helped them a lot during that time. So that's the reason why they decided to give me this name. And as I also talk about in my book, Africans, mostly West Africans, really believe in the importance of name. So when I am at home with my parents and even my best friend, they all call me Anna. And Karima was a name given to me by, I can say, a mentor, a spiritual coach in 2013. So when I first released my album called 2G, which stands for second generation. So I believed that Anna Maria was not that name that could really, engage with the things that I was facing during that time in terms of activism. So I really need a like a Celtic name,
Yeah.
and that's the reason why I choose Karima 2G. And even because 2G is mostly considered to be a negative connotation, which represents more than a million of second generation children, immigrant children born in Italy. And I wanted to change this connotation in something more positive and given like a power to this name. So that's the reason why I also choose it to. I decided to include this name in my stage name. So when I perform, yeah, I'm Karima for sure. And I think both of this name represent sort of a conflict between different identities, something that I've been facing like for my entire life. Like yeah, a conflict between two cultures, like Africa on one hand and on the other hand, the Italian culture. But now I think that I found the right balance between these two names.
Awesome. Yeah. There's something that you said just at the end about
Mm.
feeling a little bit Italian and a little bit not. Your roots are Liberian. You
Mhm.
said, have you been back to Liberia before?
Okay, so I went to Liberia the first time in 2013, so that was 10 years ago. And I had this desire uh, since I was a child because all I knew about Africa, about Liberia, was the story that my mother used to tell me when I was a child. She used to tell a story about her childhood in her village or in my father village, for instance. So that pushed me, you know,
Sure.
to go there, and
Yeah.
I think that that completely changed my life.
Yeah. So I have two questions about that.
Hmm.
So the first question is, when you're in Liberia, do you ever feel like you're not Liberian enough?
Mm.
And when you're in Italy, do you ever feel like you're not Italian enough?
I mean, when I'm in Italy, the problem is that I never felt being an Italian, at least until 2013.
Wow.
And I think that because according to the government, those who were born to immigrant parents, they are not considered as Italian. So, and that is the main thing that nowadays second generation are fighting against this law.
Could you tell us what the law is that you're fighting against?
Is the law of citizenship related to the Bossifini law, and something that has been going on for like years. So basically, we have in Italy we have the jus sanguinis. So if you can only obtain the citizenship if your parents are Italian, like your grandparents was Italian, so by blood, but not if you were born there. So not by land, you can say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who were born by to immigrants or migrants' parents, that is an issue because they have to wait until they reach the legal age, 18 years old, before they can apply for the citizenship. But that doesn't mean that they're gonna have it, and they still have to. Then after 18 years, once they apply, there are some they are still waiting. They've been waiting for almost 20, 30 years.
Wow. From the
So
age of 18. So that
yes, in
means
the
there
age,
some people are in their 40s.
yeah.
And we were talking about at lunch earlier that, there are some Italian Americans
Hmm.
who have more legal right to be Italian, quote unquote Italian, whatever that exactly means, than someone who's born in Italy, instructed in Italy, worked in Italy for their whole lives. So yeah, it's definitely an issue to think through.
Yeah,
And
I mean, when I arrived here, there was the driver,
hmm
the Uber driver,
yeah.
and he asked me where I was from. It's like I'm Italian. Oh well, my father was Italian, my grandfather was an Italian, or like my grandfather was an Italian too. It's like, oh, did you have your citizenship though? Italian? No. Why? Can I? It's like, yes, you can. You should apply for it. So when we arrived to the hotel, it's like, thank you. I'm gonna check tonight. I'm gonna check online because I that would be also interesting for my daughters. So I'm sure if you apply for it, it's gonna have it in less than a year or two maximum. It's not
And
gonna
then
wait for
can
long.
vote in the elections and
Yeah,
and all that, even having never been to Italy at
yeah,
all.
exactly.
Yeah. So I have a question about your music, and this
Hmm.
is kind of taking a few steps back to what you were talking about. Also in the beginning of your book, Il Corpo Nero, in the blurb, your Liberian roots and the importance of storytelling, oral histories in your culture. And we see this also in Ijaba Shego, in La Mia Casa e Dove Sono, the importance of storytelling and Somali origins. Could you talk about at all if there was any influence on this culture of oral history and storytelling in your music?
Hmm.
Because I feel, there you have a lot of narratives going on in your songs, and they're very politically minded. So could you talk about that relationship?
I mean, I was when I released my first album, Tucci. I didn't have a plan. It's not that I really wanted to release the album because I wanted to gain somehow attention from media. As one of my friend, he's a journalist who really convinced me to release the album because in the beginning I did it just for fun because as soon as I came
Wow.
back from Liberia, when I came back to Italy, I felt that something was completely changed in me.
Mm,
You know, I started seeing myself. I mean, I used to see myself like this is something that I talk about also in my book. I've always been like the only black girl everywhere, so I was used to it somehow. But once coming back from Liberia to Italy, I seems that I felt it even more, and that there was no space at all for a black woman. So all that I was doing with my music, through my music, was to talk about this experience
mm,
of being a black woman in Italy or being a second generation in Italy. But I was immediately represented by the media as the black and aggressive or black and aggressive girl, you know, who was protesting against a system. So it's not that I wanted to do politics. I think that everyone, but I am politics because I was born to do that. uh, Living without rights makes you to be somehow an activist. You're forced to do it. There's no
Absolutely.
way that you can get rid of this.
I have a question about the music itself and the visual components that you
Mm-hmm.
choose to include in much of it.
Mm-hmm.
In Professor Vetri's class, we watched a lot of your music videos, and I think after seeing them, it's an essential component to your music. You know, like I think they blend together so well, and it really helps the what I believe to be a lot of the messages in the music come out. And I think the body is
Mm-hmm.
very very central in your work. I'm blanking on the exact name of the song, but we use breakdancing and contortions and
Mm-hmm.
eye contact and then breaks in eye contact. In the beginning of Corpo Nero, you and your twins' hair, Maria, um, Karima's twins' name is Maria, and Karima's birth name, I guess, is Anna Maria. Maria's hair and your hair is a very central theme. I remember the hot comb that your
Yes.
mom, would pass down your hair every morning,
Mm-hmm.
and you talked about how treacherous and hard and painful that
Mm-hmm.
would be. But after, you would be so proud that you had different hair every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so could you talk about the role of the body
Mm.
in your music and in your book, Il Corpo Nero?
Okay, in my music video, the first video that I released was Orangutan.
The
In
first
which
black government minister, Cecil Kyenge, was racially insulted by the Senate Vice President. Roberto Calderoli of the Northern League compared the integration minister to an orangutan.
2G, second generation, citizen right, representing nation. 2G, second generation, citizen right, representing nation. Orangutan, 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 orangutan. Who the hell is orangutan, 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 orangutan. Miss education, orangutan, 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 orangutan. I love animals, bears and wolves. Mr. Calderoli, come and sit in my zoo. Greenpeace, protect the seas. DRC, Congo, Kinshasa, black is my skin. Smile, take my picture. Don't you ever compare me? Big in the game, I'm a supermodel. Here come the big show. Smile, take my picture. Don't you ever compare me? Big in the game, I'm a supermodel. Here come the big show. Different culture, spicy food, tribal, traditional. What is your rule? Orangutan, 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 orangutan. Who the hell is orangutan, 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 orangutan?
in which I do not appear. I started my career as a dancer, and I started dancing like many clubs, the major clubs in Italy. And also there, even there, I was the only black girl. Me and my sister were the only black girls, but we were on stage, and that uh was also like, look at the kind of objectify the body.
Mm-hmm.
But what I used to do was like to transform this experience into something more constructive. This is what I learned from my parents. Okay, you are only going to be the only black girl there dancing, uh, because usually in Italy, when they see a black girl, she either a dancer, she either you know I remember like someone told me, if you're a black girl, you either a dancer or you're a prostitute or you have been adopted by a wealthy family. Um, so that's the reason why I decided not to to just to like in the video orangutan. I decided to basically take some footage from the main films that I watched with my father, because he's the one that taught me the importance of African traditional music and um, African culture through music and through films as well. So in orangutan, I basically selected some footages from, I think, one of the most important South African film that I ever watched in my life, which I suggest everyone to watch, is Sarafina, which talks about the apartheid in South Africa. And I watched the film several times with my father. And then this in this film, so it's not only a movie, it's also a musical. It talks about politics. It talks about segregation. It talks about a lot of things, and that's the reason why I decided to choose some to select some footages and create a video out of it. And even because I didn't want it to present myself, through my body as the black girl who is protesting against mm, yeah, against the racist government, because during that time was the logo Lega Nord. He was a politician who was part of the Lega Nord in Italy, and insulted the former Minister of Integration, the first black former Minister of Integration, female, uh, Cecile Kiang, and he compared her as an orangutan. So it's like, if he does that, that means that everyone can do it. you know so, and going back also to the narratives, like Liberians usually make fun out of even negative experience.
Mm.
Yeah, so orangutan was a way also to make fun out of it. Like, mm,
And
you
this
know what
makes
you're talking
sense
about.
in terms of the timeline you were saying before, of your return home to Liberia and then
Hmm.
coming and feeling inspired to put this into music. So it would make sense that that aspect of Liberian culture filtered into your work. Yeah. Um, okay. Thank you. Yeah. And, so I have a question about what I thought was a protagonist in one of your music videos, and I'm sorry, I'm having a mind fart right now, and I can't remember the music video.
Hmm.
But there's one where I think the Mediterranean Sea was a
Yeah.
protagonist.
Refugees.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Yeah. There, I mean, there's driftwood that's washed
Mm.
ashore that almost look like bones, and film the tide coming in and out. Could you talk about what the
Yeah.
Mediterranean Sea means to you and how you expressed it?
Okay, so orangutan was the only video in which I do not appear in the video. Then
Yeah.
after that, I released Bunga Bunga, and that was the first video in which that was not only me, but other dancers, and most of all, I had um, a gay Senegalese dancer, and that was shocking for because it was not only related to, there were like there were different layers to think about, and that's the reason why I decided also to have this dancer. He actually wanted to be part of this project. And in Refugees, I was looking for a filmmaker. Actually, I received a lot of proposal from filmmakers who wanted to shoot a video of refugees. But I didn't really like the way, mm, they wanted the story. They wanted to create basically the story
Hmm.
around refugees, and so that's the reason why I decided to do it by myself. So I took a camera and I went to the sea. And what was very
Oh, you
interesting,
filmed all the
I
shots.
filmed like everything,
Wow.
because I remember one of the proposal was to you know to show a sort of a drama, uh, like me being a refugee, laying down, like I'm dead on the sea, and that is really done. But I, sorry,
It's okay.
this is what I actually didn't want it to do. Was too dramatic for me. I
Mm,
mean, obviously, we are talking about stories which are still nowadays. There are thousands of migrants who are dying in the Mediterranean Sea, and I released that video different years ago. So yeah, I took a video. I went there, and what was very interesting is like the universe created the entire scene. So the boat was there, and it was,
serendipity. Yeah.
yeah, serendipity. It's
Yeah.
like
Run away across the nation. Find a solution, refugees, let them go. Run away across the nation. Find a solution, refugees, let them go. American dream, escape by the sea. Come to Europolis, no big deal. Stand up, don't bend. Stand up for the land. Stand up and shout. Stand up, don't bend. Stand up for the land. Stand up and shout. Run away across the nation. Find a solution, refugees, let them go. Somalia, find a solution. Sudan, find a solution. Nigeria, find a solution. EU will find a solution. Let them go, 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 let them go. Find a solution. Let them go, 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 let them go. Find a solution. Run away, refugees, run away, run away, refugees, run away.
That's great. So you're constantly taking on so many different roles, singing, writing, filming, acting. I mean, that's no easy task. What do you enjoy doing the most?
mm, I think that I'm just I just want to use different tools, and
Yeah.
yeah.
You're very plugged in, it seems, to media as well. Like
Mm,
the Bunga Bunga, reference to Berlusconi's parties and the Minister Kienge. Uh, what were some of the major cultural moments that you felt like you had to comment on, and do you think that, with the change in the makeup of Italian politics right
Mm.
now, leaning further and further to the far right, that there are more of these moments to come, or there seem to be more happening already? What are your thoughts on that?
Nothing else changed.
Nothing else changed. Yeah, yeah.
No,
So it's not getting better, you're
it's not
saying?
getting better at all.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think with the new government, it's also getting worse.
Getting
I'm
worse.
someone who is always optimistic.
Yeah.
Uh, I look into the future. That's the reason why they define me as an Afrofuturist
Mm-hmm.
or artist. And this is how also I want to be. I love to be defined like, someone who look at things into forward.
Could you expand on that more? So, as an Afrofuturist, how do you imagine the future, or how would you like to see the future?
If someone tries to segregate you or to oppress you, you can find a way not to be oppressed or to take advantage of it.
Mm,
This is what I try to do with through my music and nowadays also with my writing, you know. So you call me Negro, I'm gonna show you what a Negro is. So I can write, I can sing, and I there's something also what I'm noticing in Italy when I just graduated, I got 2 degree, and when people ask me, uh, when I tell them what I got 2 degree, they're like, "How can a black girl get 2 degrees? Like impossible even to have one."
yeah.
To be a black girl and be a doctor, be educated, and speak a perfect language, something that is still it's not common for them. It's not some be the perfect black Italian girl, something that is still um, unacceptable, I think. And so I just try to. I think art gives you really the power to do that, to tell your story and to reach a new generation. I really believe in the new generation. So it's not that I'm fighting this, trying to fight the system. Even though I wrote different letters, just recently I wrote a letter to the president Meloni. I know I don't know, she never replied to me, but our supporters replied to me, and there's a new generation that I think is changing. To be honest,
Good.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So there's some hope.
yeah, I
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what is the message that you want people to take from Il
Mm.
Corpo Nero?
Well, believe me or not, but similar to my music, uh, in the beginning, I didn't want to write this book because
You felt called to?
I just, I mean, I'm an artist. I just want to do my music and dance. This is all I
Yeah.
wanted to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I got my degree, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go back to my music. But the fact is that, similar to what is going now, I was invited to a lot of conference to talk about my music. And each time I talk about my music is not only about me, but it's also about like um, my background, the story of my family, and the relation between the United States and Liberia. So each time I talk about my music, I also talk about that. And people are curious to know how did my father manage to arrive to Italy as the first parliament of his village. And I talk about these things like I'm talking to a child,
Mm,
just like my mother used to talk to me. And in the last year, I was supported I was supported like there were a group of feminist women real feminists that motivate me a lot. They told me, "What you really need to write a book about this story because no one knows about Liberia. All they know about Liberia is based on a football player called I remember where So you really need to tell people about your story, your parents' story, and how you basically facing some bureaucratic and laws in Italy." Um,
Mm.
so I was like, "Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that." But I didn't thought about giving a message. All I was doing, just writing, just following the flow, and going back to my 6 years old, to my 10 years old, 15 years old, and so on. And I wrote my book like I was writing rhymes.
Mm.
I was writing a song.
Yeah.
And there are some people, Ian Chambers, most of all, who is a scholar, which I love all his work. And he told me, well, when I wrote your book for the first time, for me, it was just like listening to your music.
It is quite rhythmic in certain periods. Momentum develops. Yeah. Oops. Um.
You see?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. The speaking of rhythm. Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thank
My
you.
question is, I guess, connected to um, myself also being a professor
Mm.
of Italian, but don't look Italian. And I think it's very interesting to be in that kind of position, right? You yourself mentioned while speaking to Stephen about that kind of positionality and how people immediately are trying to place you in Italy.
Mm.
Where does this person fit? Where does this body fit? So I wanted to actually ask you about your experience touring here in America,
Mm.
and how has it been for you to, um, be here with American students, with American faculty, although they are obviously many times in Italian departments. Um, how has it been for you as compared to when you're in Italy and talking about these issues?
Mm. Every single university I've been to, I think that there's always something different that happen, different kind of feedback, different kind of thought. But also in the United States, even though I do believe that racism is everywhere, we cannot deny that, and we are aware of that. It's not that I'm coming here to talk about Italy in a negative way, you know, but arguing that Italians, that all Italians are racism, is not what I want to do by telling my story. But it's about even talking about the past, talking about the history, and how, um, like, from post-colonial, from slavery to nowadays, talking about the contemporary slavery. And by discussing with the students, we try, through the reading of my some of my chapters, we try to analyze if slavery still exists, if racism still exists, how we can fight that. But most of all, what I notice is that for me, being here is also learning about certain terms that we actually do not use in Italy, such as race, such as, yeah, race most of all, something that we can discuss a lot about. But also, what I've been doing, for instance, from Chicago to Arkansas to Ohio, Columbus, is me exploring a different state, a different city, as a black girl in the United States, trying to see even how the the black community is living in the city.
I kind of noticed, I was kind of watching you watch people on campus
Mm,
as we were, walking through
mm,
New Brunswick areas and a little bit of campus. And I noticed you were looking at the black bodies and black students with keen interest
yeah.
and trying to like place them and try to kind of see what their experience is here in America. I just noticed that you instinctively were your eyes were following
I
those
mean,
bodies.
yeah, that's so true. I mean, I think that was in one of my chapter. I talk about like how my father always told me that everywhere I go, no matter where am I, and every black person that I see, and every African that I see, uh, that there are they could be my father, my aunt, my sister, you know. And today, yes, yeah, it happens also today. I was working and I saw this student. She looked at me and she smiled. There's always this
I think
eye
I caught
con.
that exchange.
Yeah,
Yeah, I felt it. Yeah.
that's like we are connected, you know. So,
And you noticed in the elevator also the glance
yes,
a, s- a student gave me, probably of South Asian origin, who looked at me as
exactly.
well. And so you're keenly aware, I think, of
Yeah.
how bodies immediately give all sorts of signs, and
Mm-hmm.
we can't escape them, and we can maybe understand that a little bit more. I noticed how impactful your body is in your music videos,
Mm-hmm.
and how empowered I felt, because these are certainly not. This is Karima is a force of nature. I almost felt in the videos. It's like, wow, this is like a, I don't know. Again, think speaking of like Afrofuturists, I was thinking like Black Pantherish. Like it's like, oh, maybe this could be some. There could be a comic,
Mm-hmm.
book featuring a character, Karima Tuji. And how my question would be, how do you feel with that switch? Do you bring some of Karima Tuji then into when you're not performing?
Mm-hmm.
What is your relationship with Karima Tuji, like psychologically
Yeah,
and
that's
emotionally?
wow. That's a great question. Karima, she's always here with me, basically, and all depends. Where am I? Like, what I'm doing in the contest. Well, but I feel that yes, Karima is my alter ego, and that she really gives me the power to raise my voice. And sometimes people tell me, oh wow, your voice is so delicate, but you have a very nice and calm voice. um, but when I perform, I completely a different person. And what I usually say is that I believe that on stage with me, when like both as a dancer and the performer, I believe that there are Manchester there as well when I'm performing or when I'm dancing. So it's not only being Karima is not only about me. And I actually don't know where this actually I know where this energy come from. Yeah, it comes from my ancestors for sure.
So I noticed that Africa
Mm,
as a song
mm,
is about Africa, and there it's almost like, okay, basta l'Italia, no?
mm,
Parlare dell'Italia, and Italianness. Um, what
mm.
what is your relationship with Africa now? Is it deepening even more after you visited Liberia? And I know you've actually done some social work too, right? So I don't know how that identity is it growing, is it constant, where do you feel that is going?
Yes. I mean, the I created like a powerful connection. It's always been there, but in 2013, it seems that um, this connection has developed more, and the energy, the knowledge that I got from Africa, I try to direct this energy into my music. But then I think that I could in one of my chapter I talk a lot. I mean, an entire chapter is dedicated to my journey back home, and my uncle was the one who guided me through this journey when I was there. Like, and I got to know many things that my father didn't told me about, thanks to my uncle. And then what happened is that a few years ago, my uncle passed away, and I completely felt lost. The fact is that when I was in Liberia and I went to my father village for the first time, which is like in the middle of nowhere, deep in the forest, and that is where I really learned a lot about my father, and that is where, from there till now, I really built a strong relation with my father. But also, my father village have I receive like an entire village basically. So they believe that one day I will go back and build a school. So that is basically one of my biggest projects. My auntie during the civil war, she she created an orphanage. So she owned this orphanage, and I'm the director of it.
Okay.
But I think that I still need time to. It's a big responsibility though. Taking care of your own village and taking care of an orphanage is a big responsibility. Um, so now it's more about how to empower myself.
Yeah, yeah.
But
If you're giving so much power
yeah,
out,
mm,
you have to also recharge your
exactly. Yes.
energy and your power within you.
Yeah.
So where my last,
Mm,
I wanted to finish up asking, what do you see in your future? Is
mm.
it music? Is it writing? Is it a mix of all these different elements?
I think it would be a mix of different
Yeah.
elements, even because when um, I'm an author of a dance contemporary project, which I didn't want it to be part of. But then now it's getting bigger, and we're gonna tour a lot in the end of the year in Tunisia, Senegal, so on. And it's something that dancing is belong to me. Music is belong to me. I think also writing is so. I I think the future will be a combination of all these artistic disciplines.
Great. Well, and we also hope the future will also involve coming to see us again.
Yes, I hope so too.
Um,
Thank you.
okay,
Great.
so thank you,
Great.
Karima. Thank you, Ana Maria, so much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks.